You challenge to find sensitivity in order to ensure that you are not overbundled by it. You can be very surprised by how many emotions are hidden underneath the calm and cool appearance. Oh god. It's like you see right through me. You should learn to live in accordance with your internal and organic rhythm and currents, governed by feelings. Feelings? No! I'm a man of logic. Logic and science. Feels over the reals is bullshit. I hate this reading. We were ripping into astrology yesterday, and it got me thinking, I'm wondering actually, why is it still so prevalent in the modern day, considering how utterly ridiculous and absurd it is? And then I saw Wisecrack had just done a video on the topic, because maybe they were thinking the same thing.
What's up, guys? Helen here with a confession. I'm an Aquarius, meaning I'm idealistic and chronically late. You're probably thinking, why the hell would I care? Well, you don't have to be inundated with hundreds of Scorpio memes on social media to know that astrology has gotten big. In 2018, Americans spent $2.2 billion on mystical service.
No, $2.2 billion? Do you know how much it would cost to house every homeless person in America? $20 billion a year. You're like a significant amount of the money that is going towards an industry that is make-believe. Again, it's make-believe for adults. Is getting 2.2 billion? Oh man.
I.e. astrology, tarot, and psychic readings. Meanwhile, astrology apps raked in
I had an ex who went to a psychic like a couple times a year? And how did that affect the relationship? I couldn't imagine having the conversation with someone who's like, I spoke to my psychic yesterday and she says, based on the tarot card that got pulled out, which was of course the white rabbit, that you are, you know, a bit of a shallow jerk. I'm like, okay. I really don't know how to answer this. That is a con artist who is conning you for your money. That's money you would have had yesterday, but now it's gone. It's burnt. You basically lit the money on fire because you gave it to a con artist who conned you out of the cash. But then that's exactly something a Leo would say at the end of the day, you know? Oh, well, Miss Cleo's different. I gotta give it up to Miss Cleo. Miss Cleo found out a way to do it on such a scale that was like unparalleled, you know? Like, did anyone ever call into Miss Cleo? Did you get Miss Cleo? Was it just like a Miss Cleo dispatch where they have a whole bunch of trained Miss Cleos? There's just like a whole bunch of them, and every single person would get their own personalized Miss Cleo? Or was it like a recording?
Skeptics of astrology, like astronomer Carl Sagan, have fairly pointed out the lack of scientific evidence supporting the practice.
How could the rising of Mars at the moment of my birth affect me, then or now?
But that, to us, is probably the least interesting thing about this phenomenon. Whether
That's
astrology
because
works,
you're
the
a Pisces.
In our science and tech-happy era, what makes the spiritual craft of astrology so endlessly compelling to so many people? Let's dip a toe into the mystical in this Wisecrack
confirmation
edition on how
bias.
Astrology
It's going to be
captivated
confirmation
the modern
bias.
world. Find meaning in the stars is nothing new. Ancient Babylonians were reading the night sky back in the 2nd century BCE. In ancient Greece,
I think there are Twitch streamers who do tarot readings. Like, hey, don't get me wrong, I'm fine with it from a fun perspective, right? If you're just doing it for, it's like playing a board game or like a Ouija board, for example, any of that. Like, if you're just doing it for fun, then it's harmless and it's wonderful. God bless, go forth, inshallah, all that kind of stuff. If you're doing it as a method of telling people that you're communicating with like actual spirits or maybe their dead relatives or being able to predict their future in a way that they should actually change their own life and behavior, then you are like a massive con artist. Then it's a huge problem.
astrology developed in tandem.
And there's also that mix, right? There's some people who genuinely believe it, and then there's other people who are just doing it because they're doing it as a scam.
With astronomy, and was treated with respect by the likes of Ptolemy and Plato. Throughout history, kings would use court astrologers to help them make important decisions, like who to invade or what flavor ice cream to eat. In the 12th century, astrology became heavily tied to medicine, and the job title physician-astrologer was a real thing. Astrology was even taught at universities across Europe until the late 17th century. But around then, the Age of Enlightenment, coupled
Danabo, thank you for stopping by the 24-hour stream last night. Much appreciated. Merry Christmas, and a very Merry Christmas to you, Danabo. It was an absolute pleasure to be a part of that. And me and CTV, we made up on in DMs afterwards, so that was great. Did you see Caleb talking with an astrologist? No. Please, salted... Wait, your name is in reference to the food, is it not? Maybe I should ask. Salted C word. We'll go with that. Do you think it's just a coincidence that the moon runs in 28-day cycles? It governs human life. This is why we don't know what will happen on Mars if the moon can do that. What do you think Jupiter is doing to us? Also, the grifts are real and a lot of it is silly.
With propaganda and political pressure, put a dent in astrology's credibility. For a couple hundred years, it was relegated to a fringe interest of
Can't even call someone by their name anymore.
For a long time, in many places, it was even illegal to predict.
Yes, I am food. Oh, okay, salted crackers. So I can say that. That's fine. There we are. Everything's all right.
Futures. The spiritualist movement of the mid to late 19th century would revive the ancient craft somewhat, but it would never be as well respected. Fast forward to the swinging 60s, and baby boomers zealously embraced astrology. And to this day, it's remained a huge, if hugely mocked, part of our culture. But how did we get here? What accounts for astrology's enduring popularity? Well, you can largely thank occult enthusiast Alan Leo, a late 19th century New Ager who super liked reading the stars. But he had a big problem. It was still illegal in England to predict the future for money. So, after going to court and being fined for his little hobby, he took his lawyer's advice and stopped making predictions. But what good was astrology without predictions of death, thunderstorms, or unsightly pimples on your wedding day? Leo was about to figure it out. See, he also believed that the Age of Aquarius was fast approaching. This was going to be a blissful era of raised consciousness and humanity reaching its true potential. He wanted to help everyone get ready for this dope galactic spectacle, specifically by achieving better self-understanding. Importantly, Leo believed that character is destiny. That meant astrology should help people better understand their character and temperament, rather than predicting external happenings like car crashes. And
he was the Alex Jones of his age.
Describing someone's personality is not technically telling the future. Thus, it was not illegal. Now, quick sidebar. You know your sun sign? That's not your whole astrological picture. Professional astrologers take into account the position of every single planet in the solar system when crafting a star chart. But that is very complicated and requires a lot of math and training. Thus, it was super expensive and pretty much exclusive to the upper class. This made astrology kind of hard to popularize. So, Leo came up with the ultimate shortcut: teach people their sun sign and draw conclusions about their character based solely on that. This bite-sized approach to the craft proved massively popular. Soon, newspapers would start publishing horoscopes, and life would never be the same for any of you two-faced Geminis. Just kidding. But yeah, he basically made abbreviated horoscopes a thing, though he couldn't have possibly predicted the 21st century meme explosion he was effectively setting in motion. Leo's sun sign-only approach would largely define modern astrology. Standardizing zodiac signs also, helpfully, made astrology marketable on a massive level via cheap almanacs. Conveniently, this was...
It's like, it's a bite-sized version of something that's already wrong. It's like you took something wrong and then made it bite-sized, like easy to consume.
Happening just as the consumer capitalist economy was entering full swing. At the same time, Leo would inspire astrologer Dane Rudyard to take this character stuff a step further in the 1930s by invoking a sparkly new type of science: psychology.
Kubi, I like to read out people's wrong horoscopes and watch them say how it relates to them so much. Yeah, that's silly. Great scam though.
Specifically by borrowing from one Carl Jung. Side note, turns out Jung was a big old weirdo who liked alchemy and astrology. In fact, Jung liked astrology so much that it's speculated that his zeal for the craft was at least partially responsible for his famous breakup with mentor Sigmund Freud. This makes sense, because as writers Kieran Legrice and Saffron Rossi explain in their book Jung on Astrology, at root, both astrology and Jungian psychology might be seen as being engaged with the critical task of developing greater self-knowledge, of bringing to awareness the unconscious factors underlying our life.
I did not know this about Jung.
Formally merged astrology with Jungian psychology, especially his notions about the collective unconscious and archetypes. Thus, he created psychological astrology and popularized the idea of reading your horoscope as a cheaper version of seeing a shrink. Rest assured, not everybody was happy about the mainstreaming of astrology. In 1952, cultural critic and notorious grump Theodore Adorno wrote a semi-aggressive 78-page screed critiquing sun sign columns. He declared that fans of astrology were persons who do not any longer feel that they are the self-determining subjects of their fate. He studied Los Angeles Times horoscopes and noted certain themes, specifically that they seemed to promote bourgeois values like tact, hard work, and success, while flattering people about how intuitive they supposedly were. He wondered how, in the age of astrophysics...
The intuitive one, that's savage. You're so intuitive. Good for you.
Anyone could possibly believe that their personality was affected by their date of birth.
That's really funny.
The question continues to be posed today. For her part, scholar Kirstine Monk argues that 2 world wars, nuclear weapons, and the environmental crisis have all made science seem a lot less sexy. This then leads people to seek out decidedly unscientific things like astrology. But what if the popularity of astrology
Gray
in
zone
modern
versus
times
bread
isn't
tube.
just explainable, but was actually pretty inevitable? Back in 1966, sociologist Jacques Matreux argued that astrology is actually a perfect fit for modernity. As scholar Marshall Berman explained, rapid change is one of the central tenets
I should be on the FBI payroll.
Whether it's the decreased power of
And the Kremlin. I want it all.
institutions or rapidly increasing globalization, our world is in a constant state of flux. As Monk explains, the world today seems more enchanted than ever, but is also, in certain ways, more dangerous and demanding. We are constantly faced with the challenge to make decisions and to act in the world without full knowledge and without a privileged point of view. Frequent job changes, cross-country moves, divorces, and so on add far more variables to everyday life than our ancestors ever had. Meanwhile, a decaying social fabric leaves us all as lone agents, trying to figure out how to behave. This creates fraught situations where we worry about making the wrong choices, about being the wrong kind of person. As scholar Olaf Hammer writes, in late modernity, we construct who we really are by engaging in self-reflexive speculation and considering a variety of options. That's where astrology comes in for a lot of people, as a mediating force to help them make sure they're not f***ing up. As Monk puts it, to use astrology is a way to claim a home in the cosmos. That's during a time when a lot of us don't have that psychic home anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take away people's spiritual comforts ever. So, I mean, if that's all you're getting out of astrology, that's completely fine with me. If you're going to then use it to be like, hey, I can't help you tomorrow because apparently, you know, Venus is going to be into the third cloud wave as, you know, Taurus seminates into the cloud, whatever, then I'll be like, no, I still need you to come and help me because you said you would. So you don't get out of it because your horoscope is bizarre.
That's why astrology is particularly attractive to people in liminal situations, like a breakup or job loss. In a world full of choices, the guidance of the stars, no matter how unproven, can feel centering for some. Monk notes that astrology both lets us feel acted upon by forces larger than ourselves, while also helping folks to make a shift of perspective.
And also, like, the other thing that bugs me is when I've got friends or family who, like, will say something and, like, will make a statement, and then right afterwards they'll be like, well, that's because they're a Taurus. And you're just like, no, it's because they're a dick. It's like, yeah, you know, it's definitely that's like a water Taurus. They're really well known for that. I was like, no, he was just being a dick. Like, that's all there is to it. There's no deeper like cosmic meaning to this.
And to reconstruct their worlds in slightly different ways. Reading your horoscope on the internet, she explains, can magically create a foreground and background for the self-reflective modern individual who might feel ungrounded in their real life. In this way, she believes its appeal is largely about agency and empowerment. Perhaps it's no wonder, then, that astrology has...
My marriage fell apart because I'm a Pisces.
...attracted marginalized groups,
Yep.
like women and people
It was destiny,
who are
though.
all too often denied power in daily life. Some scholars think astrology even functions as a powerful coping mechanism. This all makes it somewhat ironic that astrology has become an important spiritual outlet for so many people precisely because it's so aptly adjusted to modern capitalism and mass production. But the popularity of astrology is also reflective of the way society now sees individuals. Remember how old school astrology was all about big events like wars and royal coronations, rather than about little old you and your inexplicable romantic affinity for mouth breathers? That's in large part because before the early modern era, individualism wasn't all that important. It was thought that every person had a few basic core characteristics in common.
I appreciate it, but I don't know if, like, you know, Leonardo da Vinci's, like, drawing of a penis is going to be TOS, or is it? Fuck, these days, the Wild West.
But the concept of the unique individual eventually caught on, with a little help from Renaissance philosopher Michel de Montaigne, among others. In our late modern times, the pursuit of that authentic, unique self has become paramount. And astrology is one way of sussing out and understanding your own quirks and idiosyncrasies.
But I would argue it makes you less unique because you're just one of every other single person who was born in that month, and all of you are identical. Like, every single person born in July is going to be the exact same.
Process, Hammer explains, we've seen decreasing concern with cosmogonic myths or social charters and an increasing insistence on personalized legends, self-centered rituals, and the spiritual transformation of each individual. The individualization of religion, of finding salvation in your own self, is
You have 13
distinctly
signs?
modern and perfectly
Alright, I
suited
gotta
to
look at my astrology now.
And this understandably coincides with the overall reduction in power of organized religions in our age. Hammer writes that these days, not only is truth to be found within each of us, the very locus of spirituality is our own self. But what if your own self is kind of discombobulated? How can you make sense of your life? Well, astrology can help with that too, apparently. As Hammer explains, astrology facilitates something called narrativism, which conveys the idea that we tell the stories of our lives, stories that construct a temporal unity for our identities and that link our specific life histories with purported grand overarching themes. In this way, Hammer writes, it offers a conceptual framework for constructing a narrative unity of life, and furnishes a narrative form within which one's life history can be understood. Hammer even says these narratives can function as therapeutic interventions, though please don't break up with your therapist just because you can blame all your problems on Mercury being in retrograde. Linguist Charlotte Lynn argues that narrative is one of the most powerful ways of creating and maintaining one's personal identity. Narrativizing can also help you establish causality and coherency in your life story. Didn't get asked to prom? Blame pesky Venus. Didn't get that promotion? You, Mars! Essentially, astrology can help us explain away the apparent randomness of human life. And according to Lind, it can do that regardless of if we fully believe in it or not. As Monk summarized, in such a disorderly world, astrology offers a symbolic and metaphorical system of imagining within a frame of order.
That Kenny G. Sachs.
Is, not at all scientifically proven and pretty randomly concocted by a few savvy 20th century spiritual entrepreneurs. But what do you guys think? Is astrology distinctly modern or a lingering remnant of ancient spirituality?
Okay, I just got my reading. These people like to change the place where they live. They use their imagination. They succumb to their dreams, moods, and public. They change their behavior according to situation. They identify themselves with their surroundings. They may be very popular, and they are able to experience the emotions of a crowd. They are moody and fallible. I guess I was fallible in how I pronounce fallible. These people always use their common sense when they act. It's like, this is all over the map. All over the map for me. They have a lot of, they do not have enough confidence. They respect details of any work with meticulous precision and great care. These people, why'd you keep saying these people? These people will be very active at the end of their life. They will be dedicated their time to the family and property. Wow. They are interested in the property or in secrets. Their genes have strong influence? Ew. What are you talking about? You challenge to find sensitivity in order to ensure that you are not overbundled by it. You can be very surprised by how many emotions are hidden underneath the calm and cool appearance. Oh God. It's like you see right through me. You should learn to live in accordance with your internal and organic rhythm and currents, governed by feelings. Feelings? No! I'm a man of logic. Logic and science. Feels over the reals is bullshit. I hate this reading.
Let us know what you think in the comments. Big thanks to our patrons for your support, and be sure to check out our podcast. Hit that subscribe button with the fury of a vengeful Capricorn, and don't forget to ring that bell.
This video was way too light on astrology. I mean, I did like the history lesson, and then just seeing how it got propagated, and I also like learning about how Carl Jung was actually obsessed with astrology, because that's Jordan Peterson's favorite psychologist. So that's pretty neat. That's definitely something. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we beseech thee to smite down our enemies. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble court jesters, here to amuse you. To our lords, Trevor R., we give thanks for this spit of land for us to eke out this meager existence. To our knights, Merid, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Ellie Leslie, Alex P., Brandon, Words Greenwood, Nate, that one guy, Hagbird Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Val 9000, Jenna Tall, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multi Mondi, Trevor Yanis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojak, Cern 42, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our flag in a veil, and we salute you, our friends.